son. We need to talk. What I'm about to tell you will change everything.
So first question is for you, Jason. You're supposed to be playing a teenager, or at least a member of a teen team. My coworkers and I that have watched the show are like, we didn't know any teenagers that sounded like Jason Mantzoukas. Did you sound like this in high school?
Exactly. I sounded exactly like this, and I had this beard. That's a good question. I'm sure I could find footage, some random video of me in high school. No, I didn't sound exactly like this. I didn't sound like a grizzled old man in high school, but I'm sure some version of this, yes. And I like to think I sound like a teenager now, Mara. I like to think when I call people, they think, oh, a young teenager has called me.
In the comics, Amber is a boring white blonde girl. And in the show, we're taking it to whole new dimensions and giving her a more depth of character. What are we going to see from Amber in the show, and how is she different and better?
I think in the show, she just has more of a sense of self, and she has more confidence, and she, Amber in the show is very clear on what she stands for and what she, what is important to her, which I think is sort of a good or an interesting foil for Mark Grayson's character, who I think is still trying to figure out what his place is and where he belongs and what's important to him. And yeah, so I think that there's, with her not even having superpowers, it's interesting that, in terms of like character, she sort of has a stronger sense of self than, potentially the person we would assume to have a stronger sense of self. And so I think, Amber is just, I think she's a representation of what heroism, I suppose, can look like just for, I suppose, the everyday person, that, we can all do our part in the world, how, no matter who we are, I suppose.
There's also like a little bit of cognitive sort of dissonance with her dating the superhero, where she's kind of like passively ignoring that he disappears and that he's, not around all the time. And you could compare that a little bit to Adam Eve, sort of what she's ignoring about Rex. How does she talk herself into it? Do you know what I mean? How does she convince herself that it's worth dating Mark?
Initially she doesn't know he's a superhero. And so, he's just sort of behaving a little erratically, and, but I think that they just sort of have a connection, and Mark is a good person. And, I think Amber is just willing to, she wants to spend time with him, and I think is just giving him chances to, I guess, be a better boyfriend, I suppose, because she can see in him that he wants to be, but his circumstances are just different than her circumstances, and Amber, just due to lack of communication between the two of them, can't really understand it. And so, I don't know. I mean, I feel like, I think it's just like a genuine, she likes him and wants it to work.
Gillian, Adam Eve seems like sort of like this amazing superhero that a lot of young women especially would want to be. How did you sort of relate to her and like find your way into her character? Like where, how are you the same? And like, what do you aspire to be that she is?
Well, I don't have superpowers, so I don't really spend a lot of time on a team of superheroes saving the world. So I'd say there's some stark differences, but she's also a character who is still trying to figure out who she is, what she wants out of life, and should she make some changes. And I think I relate to that on a daily basis. So that feels very relatable to me. But yeah, she's dealing with problems on a global scale in high school, and I was just really dealing with myself.
Jason, you're a noted comics fan. I was wondering, if you'd read Invincible when it initially was coming out, like what your relationship was with the comic going in.
I read Invincible, exactly, when it came out, throughout its run, as well as Walking Dead. I was a big Robert Kirkman fan. And I'm reading Firepower, his book that he's doing right now with Chris Somney, which is incredible. So to be a part of this, frankly, is, incredibly exciting, simply for the fact that I get to be the voice of a character or inside of a story that not only do I know really well, but I was a huge fan of. So I loved this series when it was, I loved, what I like about Kirkman is, and it kind of gets at what you're talking about otherwise, is that these are characters who are, for the most part, grappling with all of the human elements of life, relationships, parental-child relationships, new, teenage boyfriend-girlfriend relationships, all of these things that we all deal with, but he, has all of these things happening inside of a genre that has its own archetypes and its own, kind of lens to look at things through. So yes, these are incredibly fun, in the case of Invincible, gory, grisly superhero storytelling, but so much of it is about the human elements of the consequences of those actions impacting people who have real emotions. There isn't just, okay, we killed all the bad guys, now go on. People have to take that reality with them and be like, I killed those people. I did that. I've now taken that life. It's not in a lot of ways, superhero movies can have a glib or superhero narratives can have a glib kind of approach to the consequences of actions. And what I love about Invincible and Walking Dead is Kirkman makes his characters not only sit with what they've done, but really grapple with what they've done. Things that Rex does to Adam Eve have consequences episodes and episodes later. The narrative is so long. It's so wonderful to be inside of it.
This is the beginning of a long journey for you, son. The thing is, you're different. You actually are